2 years ago, when I first heard the name Wim Hof, I was intrigued. It was in the context of breathing techniques, and I wasn't sure if Wim Hof was a person or a type of breathing practice. So I looked him up online and was quite literally blown away. This began an epic journey, and in retrospect, it's difficult for me to believe the man and his method would have the impact on me it has. Not to sound cliche, it really changed me. And this has had an effect on my environment and the people I interact with daily. Wim's inspiration is twofold, his method and his message, both of which made me pay close attention. The extreme nature of his challenges and fearless adventurer mentality immediately spoke to my lifestyle. I'm a black belt in the art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and as an instructor, competitor, and self-defense teacher, I help others cope with fear and stress in relation to protecting themselves. The Vice documentary was my first exposure to Wim. I got a glimpse of him on multiple levels, and my impression was that of a coach. I know him a little better now, and in a lot of ways, this is still how I view him. Many awesome things can be said about Wim, but his personal story about his family inspired me deeply. And as the credits were rolling from the documentary, I was back online signing up for the 10-week program. I learned a lot about myself while advancing in the method and was an excited kid every week when the new material showed up in my email. This information inspired me to develop a strong personal practice while navigating the elements of the method, which are breath work, mindset training, and a gradual exposure to the cold. I gained a great deal of knowledge from the online program, and I am grateful that it was made available. At the time, I never imagined I'd meet Wim, but his warmth and character really shines through in the videos, and his ability to motivate and instruct are very stimulating. After completing the 10 weeks, I was immersed, and it was obvious that I wanted to take it to the next level. The opportunity then arose to travel and work with Wim in California and also in Colorado, so I immediately jumped on board. Time spent with Wim and his instructors and the friends I have made on this path are irreplaceable. The knowledge I acquired could not have been accomplished another way, and the progressive uncovering of material exposes new understanding and shows that there is always more to learn. The simplicity of the Wim Hof method was something that I appreciated. I felt that right away I could dive in, and after my first breathwork session, I was astounded by the effects. The breathwork is the axis of the methodology and helps develop a mindset and ability to expose yourself to the cold. Safety of this part of the method cannot be overlooked though, and should always be practiced in a conducive environment, especially when beginning and gaining a foothold. The mantra is never practice the breath work while in water due to shallow water blackout, or in any other place where your well-being could be jeopardized. Existing heart conditions are also another safety consideration. Knowing your body and checking with a physician is necessary if this is a concern. Comfort is something that can also help you sink into this particular meditation. So laying down or sitting relaxed is almost a prerequisite, which helps to avoid losing balance or falling. The maxim of the Wim Hof method breath training is no force. So you have to find a balance of over-breathing without straining to accomplish this. The feelings achieved are not subtle or vague, and when done properly, the sensations are robust. The light and luminous feelings have a calming effect and are the trademark of this breath practice, which is sometimes called a controlled hyperventilation, over-breathing, or is known as the balloon blowing breath. Wim's cadence of fully in and let go is the pace I used in my initial stages of training. The inhale is full and complete, and the exhale, still observing the no-force principle, should release the breath without a full exertion, leaving residual oxygen in the lungs. This rhythm is kept up for 30 breaths, and after the last exhale, the breath is held for as long as it comfortably can be. When the desire to breathe arises again, a full breath is taken in, and after holding the inhale briefly, we relax and exhale. This restarts a new flow of 30 breaths with a final exhale to breath hold for the next consecutive rounds. Exploring the internal reactions shows something profound about this breath practice. While over-breathing, lots of oxygen is taken in. O2 and CO2 levels in the blood adjust to this deep breathing. As O2 is brought in, the CO2 reduces and alkalinity in the blood raises while the acidity lowers. The production of adrenaline occurs in response to the intensity of the breath work and begins influence by reaching the autonomic nervous system and immune defense systems, and this has tremendous value for our overall health and energy. Mindset and focus training are crucial in the Wim Hof method system to attain its true value. As Wim has demonstrated in his scientific studies, it appears that the combination of mindset application along with the external stimulation of cold unlocks our abilities to deeply influence our autonomic nervous system. These were the keys to suppressing immune response in Wim's endotoxemia studies, which truly gave birth to the Wim Hof method. Intention and willpower is the driving force behind our goals and can be called mindset. To have the desire to push past self-imposed limitations and find new strength is what I was after. Before I really understood the depths of this, I knew I would have to focus in order to approach the cold. The ice bath was my primary goal, and at first I was experiencing stress in relation to just the thought of it. This gave me a real insight into how much the mind can influence the body, and namely our nervous system. My mind and focus unquestionably fortified by combining these pillars, and because my intention of the end game was driven by Wim's guidance, I always believed in myself. In the Wim Hof method, gradual cold exposure is its unique powerhouse. It appears to be the essential element in gaining access to the autonomic nervous system and immune system components. The massive benefit of the cold are a long list of wellness and fitness related wonders and have become the gifts that keep bringing me back to the ice training. But the impact of the cold and its dangers must be heeded, and paying attention to the warnings are very important. Afterdrop, for instance, happens after a prolonged session with the cold induces a mild or significant hypothermia. As we rewarm, cold blood from the extremities circulates with the warm blood that is pooled in the core to protect the organs. This is the beginning of real problems and why staying vigilant is so important. Wim, for example, would be as cold as anyone else unconditioned if his focus principles weren't applied. Undercooling is the most serious danger. It can be lethal in worst-case scenarios, and again, the building of tolerance to the cold should be mindful so as not to risk things that can be avoided. Always have a contingency plan to warm yourself with proper techniques or external tools, and remember the trick is to not overdo it, but cultivate the practice over time and with patience. As I progressed through the 10-week program, building my tolerance to the cold showers became my favorite part. My family thought it was hilarious to hear me adjusting to the water with a little screaming, and my son would always yell back at me, "You can do it." I was determined and eventually figured out that I needed to calm down in the moment, and with that I became aware of myself in a new way. I could feel the changes in my nervous system after I would exit the shower and rewarm. My senses sharpened, my mind became more acute, and my body would feel deeply relaxed. I understand now from the information that I have learned that this was my heightened sympathetic nervous system returning to homeostasis and entering the parasympathetic. This has become a feeling that I now depend on. After I finally accomplished my first ice bath and subsequently each time I take one, I am thankful for this entire process. The program also brought my focus back to yoga. Yoga has been a major part of my life but has taken a back seat because of time and other fitness responsibilities. This supplementary part of the program really helps direct the energy of the mind, developing and furthering the mindset and focus. Practicing it now in conjunction with the ice training has helped me fully understand how to engage and relax within a given posture. Overall, on a daily basis, I could see the results were making my jiu-jitsu and fitness lifestyle excel, and it greatly increased my ability to recover, heal, and ultimately perform. The Wim Hof method cannot be reduced to the sum of its parts and really can only be viewed once the pieces are brought together. I see the three pillars as individual systems that overlap and interplay beautifully. When training with the breath, mindset, and cold, a unique internal and external style of resistance strengthening takes place. This type of training is distinct because of the manipulation of the three major stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, and norepinephrine, which leads to a direct interaction with the sympathetic nervous system and the stimulation of the fight or flight response. Women students trained in the method have demonstrated being able to consciously activate the sympathetic nervous system and release high levels of adrenaline using just the breath. The breath training also teaches us how we can de-escalate from a stress situation like an ice bath through consciously using our exhale in order to interact with the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is a direct link to the parasympathetic nervous system, also known as the feed and breed response. Training the Wim Hof method teaches us how to recognize triggers that help us hack our way in and out of stress. The acute adrenaline and cortisol elevation that takes place when we enter the ice bath directly correlates with an excited breath reflex. Then, using the Wim Hof method training aspects of focus and breath control, we can deliberately overcome the desire to panic and guide our innate sympathetic response to achieve parasympathetic relaxation. This process binds all three pillars and creates a dynamic alliance between them and their benefits. The hidden gem of this program for me was becoming aware of brown fat activation and thermogenesis. This mechanism cannot be understated. Brown fat is a tissue that activates to keep the body warm in the presence of cold. It is fat that holds concentrations of mitochondria which give it its beige color. An interesting thing about the Wim Hof method process is that the cold increases the storage of brown fat, but it is the stimulation of it after exiting the cold through mindset, breath, and minimal movements that bring about the feelings of thermogenesis. Brown fat activation has many potential benefits, but because most adults don't have reason to cultivate it, the experience goes unknown. The feelings of heat rising up the spine into the neck, shoulders, and collarbone may take time, but with consistent practice should be recognized. I said I view Wim as a coach, but I also see him as an artist, whose muse is his love for life, family, friends, and students. His message is timeless and it speaks from his heart. He's telling us to become healthy, happy, and strong, and then we will break through our fears and self-imposed limitations. By practicing the method, so many things come forward. The interaction with nature can show us how to take the reins over lost control, and it is exactly this that healed something more important in me than anything. A connection that was stifled at the point in time in my life that I first began the Wim Hof method. Wim's message brought a lot of love into my heart and made me recognize the beauty of what was right in front of me. The most important thing in my life, my wife and children. I had let too much worldly darkness and despair creep into my life, and this method shone a light on that and drove it out. I don't see this method as a ticket because you must work at it. Instead, it is an amazing tool and one that should be kept sharp so that when it's needed, you can use it to face the hardest nature and the coldest, highest peak of adversity. The inner fire is in us all.
We're going to scream before we get in the water. Okay? People do this. Look at that. That was all at one time. So when you scream, then come back and be relaxed.